Joe Boykin has been on Charleston County Council for 9 months as councilman for District 8. He tells me what he's working on right now for the district for this edition of Quintin's Close-Ups. And if you haven't already, subscribe to my YouTube channel and like Quintin's Close-Ups on Facebook. Charleston County Councilman Joe Boykin, welcome back to Quintin's Close-Ups.
Always a pleasure, Quintin. So good to see you again.
Likewise. So, you've been a councilman for a couple of months now?
Almost 9.
So, who's Joe Boykin now versus when you became councilman?
Well, hopefully more informed and more educated and more able. When I got elected back last November, I had the benefit of those months between November and taking office in January. So Charleston County really did me a service by allowing me to participate in what they call deep dives. So I got to come in and meet the administrator, our deputy administrators, and actually get a chance to have all the different departments come and basically explain to me what they do, their function, and really give me a chance, because most people aren't taught how to be a council person before they ever take office. So that was really critical into me getting a head start on my new duties.
And you talk about those duties. So what's new, what's now with Charleston County Council?
Well, we got a lot of things. This has been a roller coaster of a year so far. Our budget we got passed just earlier at the beginning of this summer. And, I'm pleased to say, I think for maybe it's 9 years or so that we've managed to not raise taxes for Charleston County residents for at least the base operating of the county government. And so I thought that was fantastic. I credit our wonderful finance staff for their creativity and hard work to bring that about. Still being able to provide a level of service to the citizens of Charleston County without having to raise property taxes is always a plus. How long we can sustain that, we don't know, but it was a nice win for us this year.
And I know Charleston County has approved its budget for next year that comes with raises for property taxes to some areas.
That's right, and those are mainly what we call special purpose districts. Two of the districts, I think, in my area, St. Paul's and St. John's Fire Department, were among those, and then you have other like St. Andrews Public Service District, James Island PSD. So they're like a regional type or special type of government, and so they have the ability to have their own line item on your tax bill if you're in their district. Sure. And that's mainly for cost of salaries for employees, whether it be facilities or equipment, those types of things. But those are all necessary for public safety.
So, and I think too on Collinville, if I'm not mistaken.
You may be correct. They gave me binders like this big, so I don't have every line, but I think you may be right.
And what parts of the county actually have the highest property taxes?
Well, I would say the highest property taxes are probably along our coastal area. Those properties that have the greatest value. The way it works is we have reassessment, I think, every 5 years, but it's capped at 15% by state law. So even if your property were to go up much more than that, you'd only be pay up to 15% of an increase. But I would say, obviously the peninsula of Charleston, I think those are just kind of obvious, but the median home price, I think, in Charleston County is somewhere around $550,000, which is very high.
Wow. So is the growth in residential and personal property, say, as far as values, is that expected to, say, moderate over time?
I don't know. I think it could continue to increase simply because we are an attractive place to live.
Sure.
And during COVID, as you remember, there were a lot of people when they were working from home. They came from other higher cost of living areas in this country. They had more cash or money on hand, sure. And they literally were outbidding local folks for some of these homes because they would offer more than the asking price. And a lot of times sight unseen. So it really just goes to illustrate what the draw of Charleston is and how much it's well regarded in the country, that people want to come here and be part of this. And also the great things with our industry and companies that have moved here, Boeing, Volvo, Google, and all those large companies. They attract people, and they're well-paying jobs, and we're a great place to live.
Yes, sir. So you talk about COVID, and you talk about obviously those cities where people come from those high salary areas. So how many of those people moved into your district over the past 2 years?
I can't break it down that way because I don't have those numbers, but I think we were running about somewhere around 50-something people a day in the Charleston area. I can't break it down exactly. Those are figures, I think, like 56 or something like
sure.
that. And I'm sure that fluctuates. But you think about that, that's quite a lot of people that have come here And and that means they need housing. There more cars on the road. So that's what growth looks like. Our challenge right now is to meet the side effects of growth in the sense of traffic infrastructure, hospitals, schools, all of our basic services, police, EMS, fire. So we have big challenges.
How many cars are on the roads each day in your district, District 8?
Well, I can't say for how many from the totality, but I do know that there's somewhere around, I'm just using an intersection, where I-526 terminates at Savannah Highway. I think it's around 50,000 cars a day pass through there. I can't imagine if you add in what's already on Highway 17, County Line Road, those other entrances into our area. I'm sure it's staggering.
So what exactly are the side effects right now?
Right now, we have affordable housing issue for sure. When I mentioned that $550,000 median home price,
yes,
we're talking about, we've got food and beverage workers, we've got, housekeeping, landscaping folks that do critical services to support this population. They certainly can't afford a $550,000 home. And then we move up to maybe the teachers, the firemen, the EMS, and the law enforcement folks, our first responders and our teachers. That's a challenge for them. And then, it probably takes 2 wage earners in a household to even start to try to, deal with a home price like that. So I'm excited about the efforts that are being led on county council by Councilman Member Honeycutt, and the potential of us getting a housing trust fund and looking at land banking and other things like multi-county parks and things like that, where we partner with another county to have an area that we can put affordable homes.
Yes.
Working with the Sea Island Habitat for Humanity and other organizations like that have been well established and have worked very hard to try to provide affordable housing for and that's critical, because those people are the backbone of what keep us safe and educate our kids, and so we've got to look forward and make sure we address that.
But let me rewind that back, Mr. Councilman. Does the public, in your mind, particularly in your district, do they still support affordable housing in Charleston County?
Well, I think it depends on which door you knock on. I think the one thing we've got right now, I think there was a housing referendum where we were looking at adding to property taxes for people to do affordable housing, and that failed by a narrow margin. So I would tell you that maybe half do and half don't. It'd be in fairness that that's an indicator. But what we're looking at right now is the A tax, or the accommodations tax, that we collect mainly from tourism. People stay in a short-term rental, stay in a hotel, they pay to visit Charleston, which we greatly appreciate. The General Assembly and the governor signed off on legislation that now we may use up to 15% of that accommodations tax to fund affordable housing efforts. And so that could be a well for sure that we can draw from to start building a housing trust fund.
So how much money can you all draw right now?
Well, that hasn't been determined because we've not voted on it. So that would be the will of council. So up to 15% is what the limit. And so, but the great thing about the accommodations tax is those are funds that come from tourism. And so that tourism would then be able to support all those folks to service those tourists would be a great thing.
Yes, sir. And we love having the tourists say, I know all about that. But let me ask you, so how much money would be in this housing trust? I know that's a redundant question too.
I would say millions of dollars, but I don't have the numbers right now. I don't know that that's been worked out yet because it's so many variables. Number one, the accommodation tax changes year to year.
Yes.
Depends on what our tourism rate is and how many people spend their nights here. And so that's the first factor. Then the next factor is county council will have to decide how much of that 15% they want to pull away from the A tax and assign to supporting a affordable housing program, i.e. a trust fund to be used for gap financing and or land banking and things like that.
And I want to get back to that in just a second, but can county council be trusted to spend the money on affordable housing after years of tax promises?
Well, I can't speak for previous councils. I'm on here now, and I'm telling you how I feel about it. And I think we've got a great team. Rob Wehrman is another key person involved on that. I think we have a good group of members. We have 4 council members that are assigned to the housing subcommittee. Sure. I had great confidence in their abilities and their collaboration, and all the rest of us on council have the ability to engage in discussions when they meet. And I think we're heading in the right direction. In fact, I mean, we get along very well. Sure. And I feel like we're all pulling the rope in the same direction, and we all acutely realize the need and necessity for affordable housing, especially now because of our growth. And so I don't see any pushback at this point.
Are you seeing pushback from the community?
No, not at all. Quite the opposite. I mean, we have Cajun and other organizations that come to council often.
They do.
And we receive a lot of correspondence from them. And I think they have been happy with our efforts thus far. I mean, everybody wants it yesterday. I get it. But we want to make sure we're thoughtful and thorough in our deliberations and our diligence on how we proceed.
So let me ask you, you mentioned some of those organizations, those are nonprofit organizations, but speaking as a whole, what public-private partnership would you want to have for this land bank?
Well, I think what we want to do is we want to look for folks that have been there, done that. So I would be looking at private companies that have, demonstrated that they can, deliver what they're bidding or selling, and that there's a track record that we can be comfortable in, that we put these public funds in hands that are well capable financially and personnel wise, and they can go in and do the project as stated, and that we are good stewards of taxpayer dollars, and we try to provide the most units per dollar that we can.
So what exactly does the county need? Do you need affordable housing, or do you need workforce housing?
So now we're kind of splitting hairs. So everyone who is a contributor to the workforce has a role to play in this. And now we get into the weeds of average median income, AMI, and what percentage of that. And so we have low income housing and we have workforce housing. It's kind of just a play on words. It depends. We need all of it, to be honest with you. So what we have to do is we have to study the problem and figure out how many units at each of these levels, these income levels we're talking about, that we need for each. It's not a one-size-fits-all. So I think it's going to be a combination of all the above.
How many affordable housing units do you need in your district, District 8?
Well, that's the issue. I don't see it that way. So I look at us as one Charleston County. Okay. I also look at us as one COG, Berkeley, Charleston, Dorchester. So I see it as a county-wide / COG-wide effort, or regional, because we're all facing these issues. None of us are immune from it. So rather than saying how many I need in my district, I welcome them. I mean, we have some, and there are more going online, and there are other projects. But my thing is, let's be smart where we put them so that we set these residents up for success, not failure. And by that I mean, let's look at banking land near transit lines, public mass transit, so that these folks who don't have cars, that may have to walk or ride a bike or whatever, that they can get to a bus or other form of public transportation. They can get to and from those jobs. The other thing is, let's don't put them in a food desert. Let's make sure they've got a grocery store, a library, all those other basic resources. What gets me upset is when I see some of these affordable units or low-income units, they're in a place where there is no public mass transit. There are no sidewalks. I mean, I've got people right over. I'll give you an example. Gilligan's Restaurant on Main Road. Okay. There's a low-income housing unit right down the street from it. It's right near a very dangerous intersection, Main and 17. I literally see people walking in the edge of the roadway because there are no sidewalks. They have no choice. I saw somebody the other day in a mobility electric scooter chair with a little bicycle flag on it in a lane of traffic. That shouldn't happen. We should do better than that. So, and I applaud the effort of getting those units, but let's don't do half measures. Let's make sure if we do that, we put the infrastructure with it, so those folks have access and mobility from where they're staying.
So where exactly is the land for all of this?
Well, it's everywhere. I mean, the idea is, there's lots of properties I think in Charleston, North Charleston, West Ashley, probably on Johns Island as well. I can't speak for James Island. And I think we would have some opportunities east of the Cooper as well. But I don't know specifically because we haven't gotten there yet. We haven't gotten the allocation from the ATAX. Right. We haven't built the trust fund. So we're a little premature for that. But when we get those funds, I think it's time to start looking. And it'll be collaboration with the county and our municipal partners. I mean, it won't be just going it alone. It's all of our problems.
Yes, sir. How do you build that trust fund?
Well, with money. I mean, with the revenue generated from the accommodations tax. We may find some other revenue streams. But I think one of the things right now is that was a close vote from the property owners in this county to not fund it with an increase in their property taxes. I think part of that's what you said, a lack of trust. You know, I think we have a duty as council members to show leadership, and in doing that, this is a great way to do it. If we take money that's not derived from property taxes, and we can actually build a trust fund and show the public what we can accomplish, like the return on investment, I think we have to do that and instill confidence in them. I don't blame them. I mean, if we haven't demonstrated in the past that we can do this, we need to show them, and I think that's a fair ask. And I think we can. I'm confident we can.
Where else could you get money for this trust fund from?
Well, you know, this last time, you know, we got money from ARPA, you know, the American Recovery Plan, and I think it was like 20 million or so, and we've done it, but we've used that mainly for, you know, well and septic, emergency home repair. I think the county purchased some houses and rehabilitated them, put those units out there. And we've done gap financing on projects that were stalled. They were almost there. They had lots of units to put out there, but they needed a little bit more money to complete them. So I applaud what the county's done so far. I think they've made good choices. And but there may be more federal funds down the road that we can harness. Again, that's to be determined.
What sources of revenue are you seeking right now?
Right now, it's strictly the ATAX as far as I know.
Okay. And let me go over to, obviously, District 8. I want to switch over to that.
Sure.
Main Road in front of the high school at Chisholm is obviously a mess.
Yes, it is.
Marianne Point continues to see crashes and fatalities.
Sure.
What exactly is your 5-point plan for this?
Well, we'll start with Marianne Point Road. Marianne Point Road, one of our chief engineers, Debbie DeToma, she has led a study on how to implement short-term and long-term improvements to that intersection. One of the things on the short term is putting in a turn lane, signage, you know, with maybe caution lights, letting people know that that intersection is coming up, the traffic may be stopped. Removing a little small stand of, I think they're mainly like gum trees or water oaks or whatever, on the curve of the road so that the line of sight could be improved so people can see cars stoppage, you know, before they happen upon it. Those are some of the, I call it the short-term, less costly improvements. Long-term, they have looked at putting in a potential roundabout. The only problem with that is people prefer four-way roundabouts versus a three-way, and that's what that would be. It's not an ideal situation, but it is a possibility we could do that. Other thing is straightening the curve. That's another more expensive thing, where you would start realigning that road. It would have less of a curve or more of a gentle curve, so people have better visibility and it's safer. So obviously all that costs money. Right now, all of our funding is committed to other projects before I got my seat on council. And so I'm looking forward to the potential of having a referendum next year, and I think that would be a way to raise some funds to continue our traffic improvement in Charleston County.
And when that referendum is passed, how much funds will be raised?
We've received estimates of upwards to $5.4 billion over the course of that half-cent sales tax.
So now I know, obviously, you talked about those projects, and some of the money actually had been taken from other projects, I guess. How much does this particular project cost right now?
The one at Marianne Point Road, I think it was in the millions. I mean, I would think it was in, to give you an idea, a basic roundabout is going to be $6 million. Yeah, exactly. To give you an idea of our costs, take 100 feet of sidewalk. If you don't have to disturb any utilities or put any piping under it, you're looking at $12,000. You take that same 100 feet of sidewalk, and we're talking about a road, we're talking about a sidewalk, and if you have to put pipe under it or deal with any utilities or that sort of thing, $55,000 for the same 100 feet. Now, we're talking about sidewalks. We haven't gotten to highways and things, so everything has gotten more expensive, the materials, all of it. So, you know, I just want to make that point. So nothing's cheap anymore.
How much did that increase over time? Did COVID contribute to that?
I can't say what contributed to it, just that it happened.
Inflation?
Inflation could be very well. You know, that's a question for an economist, and not a junior councilman. But no, I'm just picking at you. But the thing is, it's just I'm aware of these increases, so that's a challenge. The one great thing, you know, I love about our transportation sales tax that a lot of people may not know is that nearly a third of those funds are paid by non-Charleston County residents.
Right.
But those folks use our roads too.
Yes.
So I mean, but you know, I think I'm thrilled that we've got it, and I can't imagine where would we be without it.
So how many roundabouts would you need ideally in that area?
So I want one at Brownswood and River Road, and then obviously the one at Marion Point is certainly it could happen. So let's move right down the street to St. John's High School. I want to get back to that. So one of the things that was suggested, Rational Roads is one of the organizations, you know, on Johns Island, and one of their proposals was to build a road from where Chisholm and Maine come together by St. John's High School and let it connect over to Brownswood. Imagine this, if you will. So if we could fit a roundabout where Chisholm comes into Maine now, and then have the fourth leg be the road connecting over to Brownswood. So, all right, and then we've got the new elementary school going in on Upper River Road. There'll be a roundabout where that is. If I can get the roundabout at Brownswood and River, that's another dangerous intersection. We've got all these families that are going to keep their kids on Johns Island and raise them and educate them there. So imagine you're a mother of 2 or 3 kids, and they're all spread out in ages. They most likely would be. So you may have to drive a child to Angel Oak Elementary. Then you might have to take a child to the new primary school, and then you may have to take one over to the new elementary school on River Road. Well, that makes all those people either drive on Maybank Highway or Main Road or River Road, depending on how they decide to negotiate it. If we could have that connector, we could push that traffic, the school traffic I'm talking about, get them off those main arteries and let them go straight from one school to Brownswood to the other school. And there's also access to the new school through a subdivision off of Brownswood. So it's traffic dispersal and trying to lessen the loads on our main arteries, but also making it easier for those families to get their kids, because I mean there'll be different start times. But even that's challenging if you've got congested and stalled traffic.
Wow.
So that's one of the things. So where that connector road would go from Maine and Chisholm over to Brownswood, at Brownswood I'd like another roundabout there. I love a roundabout. You know, it keeps traffic moving. When hurricanes or storms knock out our power, they keep functioning just fine. They also prevent high-speed T-bone collisions. You have to slow down to go through a roundabout. You can't, so, the worst we're going to have are glancing collisions, which are going to be less likely to cause loss of life and serious bodily injury. So they're also traffic calming devices. And people drive too fast on Johns Island. Those roads, they weren't made to handle the traffic they're dealing with right now. And so anything we can do to make our roads safer, I will pursue.
And I know all about the roundabouts because I sit there and watch the ones at Mount Pleasant Townsend a lot.
I mean, you look at the one that goes to Camp and Riverland. That thing works great.
Yes,
the one right in front of Freshfields.
Right.
I mean, think about all the traffic that goes through that.
Yes, sir.
The great thing about the roundabouts is where you can do it, if you have the roundabout, but you also have a right turn lane for the traffic that's going to take that first.
Right.
Those cars get out of the roundabout. They don't get fed into it. So, I mean, that's another way to make them more efficient.
So how should the county negotiate this?
Well, right now, again, it goes back to money, and as I've said before, most all of our current funding is allocated to projects already. So the issue is it's a need for more future funding to do these things. You know, the state can only do so much. They got to spread their money across the entire state. Those dollars are always, competitive to get, and so the transportation sales tax has been a godsend for this county.
So, well, let me ask you this, that goes into the, that ties in actually to what you were just talking about. What's the status of the South Pitchfork?
So I'll start with that, but I thought you wanted to know about the Northern Pitchfork.
Oh, I want to get that too.
Can I start with the Northern Pitchfork? Okay. So the Northern Pitchfork is under construction right now. And Fimicall Alley, there's a light there on Maybank Highway. That's where you would enter to go into the Northern Pitchfork from Maybank, and then it will take you out to Northern River Road and send you out. Right now, this is kind of funny. So when I got on county council, what I saw, or I got frustrated about, there was not a lot of collaboration and interaction between the county and the city of Charleston as far as on day-to-day projects. And so I made a motion on county council to direct our staff, our transportation and public works staff, and our zoning and planning staff to collaborate and meet with their city partners. And so we have been having meetings down in Mayor Tecklenburg's office. We've had a few already, and we've been doing it about every couple of months. And so the focus of this has been the Maybank River area. And so when we got in there, we realized that right now where the southern pitchfork is coming off of Maybank Highway, it cannot align with the the northern pitchfork where it comes into Maybank. It cannot align with the southern pitchfork as it exists. That light where it is now, we're going to have to make a connection further down towards the Stono River Bridge. Because that's where the southern pitchfork comes in. It makes no sense to have two roads not aligned if they're to serve as a alternate route to get around the intersection of River and Maybank. Then on the other end of the proposed southern pitchfork, it doesn't align with Cane Slash Road. So we're working right now to see if we can align, move where Cane Slash attaches to River Road further north, so it might align with the southern pitchfork connection and put a roundabout there. Doesn't that make a lot of sense that the traffic can move without being interrupted?
And let me go to the bigger picture.
Yes, sir, sure.
526.
Yes, sir.
There's still no money for the 526 extension, and county seems reluctant to inform the citizens of any financial plan. I know you seem to be pushing for a new $5 billion referendum next year that would include funding for 526.
It would.
And a lot of sweeteners like the Greenbelt money and pet projects for various projects around the county. So why not sever the 526 part from the rest and see if the citizens really want to spend $2 billion or more on 526?
The reason I won't do it is I'm not going to sectionalize Charleston County. We're one county, we're one people, and we've never done that before. We've never said, okay, let's only do Mount Pleasant projects, let's only do North Charleston projects, let's only do West Ashley projects. We've never operated that way. All the counties have their needs, Highway 41.
Yes.
So the issue right now, a lot of folks in southern or southwestern Charleston County feel like they've been left out. Look where all the big road projects are. They certainly haven't been in my district. So right now, this has been a critical piece of regional transportation infrastructure. The COG has been behind it, DOT's behind it. Nobody said a word when they connected to Mount Pleasant and Isle of Palms and everything else on that end. How about over here? We have 2 points of ingress and egress off of 4 islands. And in fact, it is the fastest growing part of Charleston County right now. They're not going to quit building houses. There's like 1,300 housing units approved right around the Maybank River interchange that are coming online. We are drowning in traffic. And when one wreck happens, one incident happens at either of those two places, whether it's the Limehouse or the Stono, it not only shuts down Johns Island because everybody tries to go off the other way, it can't handle it. And then it shuts down Folly Road, it shuts down Savannah Highway. So I say to you, this is something everybody says is never going to happen. It is happening in the sense that we have approved our $75 million that Secretary Hall asked for. We're waiting on the SID to do their matching funds. Those funds will purchase the remaining right-of-way to get 526 to Johns Island, upper and lower connections on Red Road, all the rest of that, finish the engineering for the project, and make the project shovel-ready because we can get the permit from the Corps of Engineers. That changes everything.
Well, in what way has the county drafted the referendum language for this?
We have not yet. My understanding is that that's being worked on, but it's not been presented to council or any else to review.
What is your approach to make certain that no county or public funds are used to promote the passage of this referendum?
I don't, that's illegal, it's against the law. That's a forgiven. I mean, that would basically say we'd be advertising or sending out mailers or expending public funding for that. And I don't think Charleston County's ever done it, to my knowledge.
Now, I know you mentioned obviously the permitting and engineering.
Sure.
So what other expenditures do you foresee from 526?
Well, obviously the $2.2 billion price tag. I mean, obviously that's what the estimate is right now. And so I've been out front that any referendum that I'm supporting is going to include the financing for 526, and it will be listed as a project among the others that would be included.
So how many bids for this particular project would actually, in an ideal sense, drive the prices lower?
Well, we got to go back to the way Secretary Hall presented the project to us. There is no way to build the project from one end to the other as a single phase. So she said phase 1 would be from West Ashley to Johns Island, and phase 2 would be from Johns Island to James Island. It would have to be done because it would be nearly impossible to find a bidder that would do the entirety because it's such a big project.
I wish I could ask you some more follow-up questions, but my time is running out and the battery's running low.
Sorry.
No, you're good. But have you looked at the traffic projections in other parts of the Tri-County area and seen the massive amounts of traffic and construction and failing road system?
I agree, it's everywhere. But this issue over here, we've got 3 parts of the county that are significantly impacted by this. West Ashley, James Island, and Johns Island. All 3 are tied to this road project as far as getting cars off of Maybank Highway, River Road, and Main Road, because that's the only way people can get on and off. And so Johns Islanders are either going to plow through James Island to get anywhere, or they're going to overload West Ashley when those trips may not be going to either location. They're just simply trying to get out of town or get up to North Charleston or anywhere else. And it is, for me, it was commonsensical all along, and one of the things I disagree with a lot of folks is the argument against 526 for so long has been, if you build it, it's just going to cause development, it's going to cause growth, and it's going to bring all these people. Well, Quintin, have you been to Johns Island lately? Have you seen the houses? Have you seen the people? Have you seen the cars? Those cows are out of the gate. I'm telling you right now. If they don't ever build that road, they're not going to quit building on our island. I mean, it's a certainty. So to do nothing is not the answer.
And you mentioned Savannah Highway and Foley Road, but wouldn't that still be failing even with the spending that massive amount of money for 526? So what's the alternative?
I don't think there is an alternative, Quintin. I think either build the road or you don't. Nothing's going to move the cars out of West Ashley, out of Johns Island and James Island, and Kiowanda, Seabrook, and Wadmore. Let's throw them in there. They're all going through the same portals. And now, you want to make it worse, Highway 17, Savannah Highway, is not going to last much longer. They're developing out in Ravenel. They're developing out on County Line Road. County Line Road is a cut through from people from Somerville when they're not using 61 as an alternative to 26. And guess where all that comes? Straight up 17, straight up Savannah Highway. And if we can take traffic off a main road that dumps out there from our end of it and get it on 526 and get it on moving, that would be a huge help. And plus, wait for it, there's more. The state's coming in and widening existing 526 for more capacity. Doesn't that kind of make sense that we're going to connect to it to get some of these cars on it? They're going to widen it to 6 lanes, and Charleston County's not paying for any of that. That's the state's project. And by the way, that's an $8 billion. That's an $8 billion project.
Now, if these smaller county roads and intersection projects can't done, then how would 526 get done?
526 is dependent upon funding from the transportation sales tax or federal funding. But we go back to this. We can't get federal funding or any additional state funding until the project's shovel ready. Shovel ready means when it gets the permits from the Corps of Engineers. To get those, we have to spend $150 million that Secretary Hall's requested.
So how much money do you have now?
We don't have anything for it right now. We've got our $75 million, which is our portion. Yeah, and that's all Secretary Hall's asked for. But that's critical,
Yes, sir.
because if we don't get the project shovel ready, we can't move forward with it.
And I know this is a dumb question,
Sure.
but what should be the timeline for this permitting?
Well, it depends. It depends on the matching funds from the State Infrastructure Bank. It depends on the referendum. So those are two key things, and so I think that's to be determined.
Now, let me talk to you about that yacht club that the developer was trying to annex into Seabrook Island, as
Sure.
you just mentioned, Seabrook Island, to get sewer. It's actually outside of the urban growth boundary. So
Yes, sir.
does that mean anything as far as the urban growth boundary?
Well, that's another thing I'm working on right now. Right now, the urban growth boundary is kind of an MOU between the City of Charleston, Mount Pleasant, and Charleston County. Those are the only three parties to that. I'm working right now with our staff to reach out to these municipalities and see if they would join us in an intergovernmental agreement to all of the stakeholders to agree that we have a definitive line of what the urban growth boundary is, where it is, and an agreement that we would respect that line and try to keep density and growth contained therein. And try to keep our rural character, our sense of place, our sea islands, and all those wonderful things that make the low country, our Gullah Geechee culture, all those things matter. And so I'm striving right now. 80% of Johns Island lies outside of UGB. I was not happy with, the town of Seabrook going forward with stepping outside that boundary that so many others have respected and worked towards establishing. But that is their right. They're a municipality, they can annex, and they were not a member of that contract, or not say contract, that agreement. And so I'm going to strive to invite them and the other municipalities to please participate, because I don't think any of them want to see growth up Betsy Harrison. I mean, that changes that whole entrance to that beautiful part of our island, our area. And so I think I think people are cognizant of growth and its effects on livability. So I think maybe the time's right that we can reach out and we can all work together and save our low country that we love and enjoy, but yet have vibrant urban centers so we can have all the amenities that we want.
How much did Seabrook annex?
Well, they didn't annex.
Excuse me.
I think it was like 14 acres, maybe a little bit more than that. I think that was what comprised that area. It may have been more. But the good news is, in the end, I guess that project right now is not moving forward, at least at present.
Now, going back to the UBG, how much land has been preserved since its beginning?
Well, I guess you could argue that most everything that lies outside of it, but it's complicated. And I'll give you this example, like Ravenel lies outside the urban growth boundary, but they're not a party to that agreement. And so right now, that town is growing.
Yes.
And I think they're going to be somewhere between, 2 and potentially maybe 6,000 homes when it's all said and done. I don't know the exact numbers. Mayor Tumbleston could speak to that. But they, as a municipality, have the right to annex and grow. But I would love to reach out to them and include them into an agreement and say, hey, okay, we've expanded where we needed to, and we've used up our sewer capacity, and then say, hey, will you shake hands with us and try to preserve the rest?
That goes to my next question. You've got the urban reserves, obviously. So which ones do you expand onto?
You mean, repeat the question, please?
Yeah, you've got obviously urban reserves in your district.
Okay.
So which ones do you expand onto?
I don't want to expand on any of them. I mean, but to me, the urban growth boundary is a line that we should respect and honor. I think it was very a great foresight on the parties that put that together, and I want to strengthen it. I mean, we live on a farm on Johns Island. We are proud of our rural heritage, and we have a well and septic tank. A lot of people do. Got no problem with that, and so. I respect folks that want all that cities and urbanization will bring, but I would invite them to live in a city, and let us enjoy our rural lifestyle and coexist. So I believe it doesn't have to be an either or. It can be an and, conjunctive. Urban and rural town and country. You know, I think they can thrive and benefit from what each has to offer.
So how much acres do you actually have left on Johns Island?
Well, we got 80, the island is 84 square miles, and if we have 80% of that left, you're probably, you know, I'd say, I had to get a calculator out, I'm doing 80% of 84 miles, but I'm going to say somewhere around 60 miles, something like that, of Johns Island that is not within the UGB.
Huh.
It's funny how the line runs. It runs down like Brownswood Road, cuts down by the airport. Yes, it's over near the Angel Oak, and then it comes back in on the lower part, kind of below Kiowa River development, and runs down that side of Betsy Caris, and then it captures Kiowa and Seabrook proper.
So money-wise, how much is left in the county urban growth boundary fund?
So you're getting into the Greenbelt Fund.
Yes, sir.
So the Greenbelt Fund, rural unincorporated.
Yes, sir.
I think there's around $17 million available for purchase of land itself for public use like parks and such, and or purchase of conservation easements on private property that would take away their development rights.
Oh, how many easements are we talking?
Well, that would be a question from Mr. Davis. So I don't have those numbers on top of my head, but I know we've conserved a considerable amount of acreage by way of purchase and or easement throughout Charleston County.
So how much is actually left in the rural growth boundary fund?
Well, I mean, acreage or
money-wise.
Money, but that's the 17 million.
Okay.
But see, you also have rural incorporated,
I got you.
which has been borrowed from,
Right.
and it has no money in it, as far as I know, and it's owed money from urban incorporated, I think is where that money went.
Wow.
The Greenbelt made a decision to do that, and actually, and the reason, another reason why the rural incorporated is down is funds went from that to Boone Hall, and also went to the Angel Oak project. So that's where those went. So that's one reason, I guess, it's depleted right now.
Right now. And what certain land in your district is being taxed on its present use instead of market value?
Well, now you get into use. So under state law, you can get reduced taxes on land that is ag use, or agricultural use.
Sure.
So where I live, where our farm is, it's ag use. And I'm sure there are a lot of other families that have property that is ag use. I mean, to get into the weeds with this, state law says that I think if you've got at least 10 acres under cultivation, that property or that tract of land may be considered ag use. Or if you have at least 5 acres of forest or timber, or trees, however you want to call it, that has a timber management plan intact, that would qualify.
That would qualify.
So that's the basics, maybe more than you wanted to know, but that's the entry level to get that designation, and it does reduce the taxes.
And how much has it reduced the taxes by so far?
Significantly.
And how much agriculture use is being used right now, I should say?
I don't have that information. I know that there is farming still in the county. I know there's a lot of people that are actively in timber management.
Yes.
And then I just put forward a resolution at a request from the Audubon Society to resolve that County Council recognizes the benefit of prescribed burning as a forestry practice and its positive impacts on the environment and wildlife and prevents fuel from accumulating that could cause severe forest fires and a fire danger.
What's the environmental study on all of this so far?
I think it's fine. I mean, nature's been doing it ever since we lived here. That was the way everything worked. Lightning would strike, forest would burn, and it was a way that nature took care of itself. So in this way, to give an example, most of the eastern and Gulf Coast part of the United States, like 150 miles in from shore, was a southern longleaf pine forest. But back in the day, they came and cut all those trees down and put back loblolly pines, which, because they were faster growing for profit and for timber. And there's a big push right now to reintroduce the southern longleaf pine to these areas and put back our original forest. And that type of pine tree needs fire to thrive.
Charleston County Councilman Joe Boykin. Thank you so much for your time again. Welcome back to Quintin's Close-Ups.
Always a pleasure. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Yes, sir.